National Championship Monday is finally here. Let's do it. Let's hit the books, part of the Hammer Betting Network, alongside the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, producer extraordinaire, Zach Phillips. I am merely Brad Powers. We have a loaded 90-minute show for you guys here. Obviously, we'll get to your questions and comments and concerns, whether it covers tonight's game or anything else relating to college football. But special to this show, we have a multitude of guests. First and foremost, here in a few minutes, we are going to fire it up with Franchise. We'll be talking player props and such. He is my favorite college football prop person on the planet. It'd be good to talk to him. And then later in the show, right around 5:15 to 5:40, Douglas Farmer, Parker Fleming. They hold down the fort when we're not doing the show during the middle of the week. They're going to come on and give their final thoughts as far as the national championship and any other things that are on their minds. First and foremost, so before we get to the guest, before we get to the chat, Knish, how was your weekend, man? And how you feeling here as we get closer and closer to kickoff?
Well, not that we got a NFC North T-shirt in there for the and it's time to add another trophy to the trophy case tonight, my man. So feeling good. Yeah, I think it'll be a good one tonight. Got a nice little show lined up here, last ride for the season. So hopefully we can go out on top here. So excited to get it going. And glad Moretto finally was able to book, Franchise, get us a couple guests here. Finally got off his ass, to do something here, working. So it's tough to get those Canadians to, do a little something. So, but no, yeah, it should be a good one tonight. I'm excited.
Before we bring on Franchise, let me remind everybody that Hit the Books is brought to you by BetStamp. The easiest way to improve as a sports bettor is to use multiple sportsbook and always getting the best odds. We recommend using an odds comparison tool like BetStamp. BetStamp compares odds across every sportsbook for games, futures, and player props. You can save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet. Download the app today. If you're looking to sign up for a new sportsbook account, please check out the offers available at betstamp.app/hitthebooks, or you can hit the link in the description. If you sign up through this page, it does help support the show. All right, without further ado, if you guys were wondering why we started a little bit late today, it's because of our next guest making his first appearance. No pressure. The mysterious one who said he shall not be known via video. He can only do audio. It is Mr. Franchise. We welcome Franchise to the show. This is my first time talking to him, so I'm actually excited. I've been reading this guy's stuff for years and years and years. What's happening, Franchise? How you feeling before the game?
Hey, fellas, I'm feeling great. I'm actually, I can't disclose my location. All I can say is I'm with a former off-field Michigan staff member, and let's just say I've got the goods on the props tonight. We're going to be riding the high horse, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, let's just, you can send that check to that person you're with. You sign it for Joey K, and and see, you can leave the Washington practice facility now. We don't want you to get caught up in there. So if anybody asks you don't know either of us. But great to have you on. I know we've been trying to get you on for a while. A man of mystery, but I know one of the good friend of mine and one of the best in the business. So hopefully big slate of props tonight. Hopefully we still got a couple to pick off the cherry.
Let's just get right to it. And I'm not asking you to release everything, and obviously stuff is moved, but Franchise, how are you looking at attacking tonight's game? I mean, we'll start side and total, and as far as your portfolio, is there anything that you specifically attacked as far as the player props outside of stuff, probably some outliers as far as market? So a lot more availability on a game like tonight. But how did you go about attacking tonight's game?
Yeah, I think that it's nice in a game like this where you kind of get a more like NFL prop slate where just about every player gets listed in some capacity, which is not the case for most weeks. So you do get a lot of options. I would say that the easiest way for me to break down kind of how my handicap worked is I kind of just look at the fundamentals of how I think this game is going to go. What is the strength of the Michigan offense against the weakness of the Washington defense? Well, that's a pretty easy one. It's the Michigan run game against a very, very bad Washington rush defense. And where I did something a little bit different here, I think that Blake Corum would be the obvious option as far as who will be running the ball, and he's going to have the lion's share of the carries. But I actually really like J.J. McCarthy rushing over in this one. It has gotten knocked up a little bit. I don't know if we can see kind of where we're at there. I'm good with an over on any of those numbers, and you'll just give me a little bit of time here just to give you my insight into why that is. You look at Quinn Ewers' last game, 8 rushes, 54 yards with a long of 21. Bo Nix, the game before that, 6 rushes, 69 yards with a long of 44. Then you have a Cam Ward dud in there where he gets sacked a bunch. And then you have DJU, 6 carries, 53 yards with a long of 26. And I can keep going down the list. Ashton Daniels, 18 for 81. Teams have shown they've been able to attack this team using their quarterback. And so I think that even if you look at the first game, for example, when Oregon played Washington, Nix only had 7 for 14 with a long of 14. So what did they learn from that game? Well, go ahead and run in the next game, 6 for 69 with a long of 44. And so when even just last game, if you just look at Ewers, what he was able to do, I mean, this guy's not a mobile quarterback, I mean, his athleticism is fairly limited. He had 7 for 40 against Kansas, who Kansas may actually be a decent comparison in terms of rush defense quality to Washington. And, he had 5 games with negative rushing yards, and his third highest beyond last game, beyond Kansas, was 16 yards. And so he ripped off 54 last game. And when I'm looking at something that I think Michigan did really, really well last game was they broke some tendencies against Alabama. They clearly confused Alabama on both sides of the ball. And if I look at the only thing that Michigan hasn't showed us this year, it's a legit diet of the McCarthy ground game. And I think that part of that is because they haven't needed to in a lot of games. And I'm not even saying they necessarily will have to have success this game, but that's the one thing that they still have kind of under their in their pocket for this one.
And you know what? I'll add on it to you. Like, they have usually brought it out in the highest leverage games in his career, but he was hurt for for the Penn State game, for the Maryland game, and even the Ohio State game. He was not 100%. So I think even his rushing stats are depressed on the year from the first 9 opponents being, a cupcake central where you don't want to run them that much. And then he was banged up. His ankle was banged up once they got into the meat of the schedule and they didn't run him as much. So I would agree with you that tonight I would be shocked if this wasn't his highest volume from a carry and a running standpoint. Because and the other guy, like, Donovan Edwards just hasn't been good. That, like, handing the ball to him hasn't worked all year. Khalil Mullings, he was banged up a little bit. He had a soft cast on. So I think he's probably their second most dynamic rusher tonight in terms of the options they have.
Yeah, and in terms of even, like you said, you go back to that game against TCU last year, he had 10 for 52, along a 39. So I feel like Bo Nix is the template. They never run him in games they don't have to, and then you see him in a game where he needs to run, they run him. And I mean, go back to that pattern. Look at, I think it was Trevor Lawrence in 2018. They hardly used him as a rusher, 6 for 27. Then in 2019, they run him more against Ohio State and LSU, 16, 107, 10, 49. And then Brad, against your Fighting Irish, even though that wasn't a playoff game, I mean, that was a dogfight, which, that was a 47-40 game. He runs for 1490 in that one. And again, these are different quarterbacks. I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence, but then go back to CJ Stroud against Georgia last year. I mean, he hadn't run all season. He's negative in half his games. Then he comes out and runs for 34. And I think McCarthy has the ability to do that. So to reiterate what you said, Uncle Joey, I think that's exactly it. This is the game. This is the game where you pull out all the stops. So I also played the alt over 59.5 at 10-1.
Oh, wow.
I think that there is a non-zero chance that he flirts with 100 yards rushing here if they really want to do it. I mean, that would obviously take a really big one, but I think it's going to be there.
Where did you find the alt numbers at?
That was at DK, and that was actually still there pretty recently. So some of the other PPHs might have copied that as well.
All right, fair enough. Is there any other ways you're looking to attack the game? Because I mean that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah, the same way. I don't have the same conviction. I played his under on his passing attempts. It was 26.5. If you're looking at Washington games, every quarterback throws for more than that against Washington. I would just say that if Michigan's wise here, why would they? You know, if the ground game can't be stopped, could they employ a Penn State strategy where McCarthy goes 7 for 8 passing and they win by double digits? You know, that was a Penn State defense they did that against. So that's not a high conviction play. I just think if the game script goes the way that I think it's going to go, I don't see the value in what's probably going to be 120, 125 snap game. I mean, neither of these are tempo teams. You're looking at 60, 65 plays probably a piece. How close to 50-50 does Michigan really want to be run pass? Because with a number of 26.5, you're flirting with 50-50. So that was another one that I played there. That's all I have on the Michigan side of the ledger, I believe.
I got a question for you. Me and friend of the program, Tailgate 10. We like McCarthy's passing yards over. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that one?
I mean, most people do, and a lot of people I respect do. Again, for me, it wouldn't be. I think I took a bit of the contrarian approach with the ground game, with him being more involved there. I do think big plays will probably be available, especially if they are pounding away. But I think the thing that if the ground game is having so much success, does the game script kind of get away from that? That would be my concern. So as opposed to me playing his yards under, which I didn't prefer, I just wanted his total attempts, just playing the volume game there. So I don't have a strong opinion on it one way or another. I hope that we can both get there, but you know, in my heart of hearts, I hope that they're pounding on him so hard that we don't have to find out.
How did you attack the Washington side as far as player props go?
Yeah, the running game a little bit. Circa posted a number in the 50s yesterday on Dylan Johnson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And Mr. Jeff Benson's going to need to be handing out some comps to get that back after posting that number. So,
yeah, he was handing out some flappers out on the strip, just going ahead and getting ahead of it. So, hopefully the weather's nice out there. But yeah, I went under on him. I mean, I think it's down 15, 20 yards from there. I was on him last week. I mean, 73.5, 84.5. That was an absurd number against Texas. And, you know, now he's a man that was literally, it was hard to watch. He was writhing in pain. There was a grown man crying in agony that got carted off the field. And again, all signs point to go. I'm sure he will try to go, but I mean, at what point, when he's in agony every game, and this seems like this just kind of exacerbated all the previous stuff, you know, at a number in the 50s at 37, and I don't know that I'd mess with it anymore. But conversely to that, I took his backup, Tybo Rogers, was listed 19.5. I think he's still probably low 20s. I took his over. Again, I don't think Washington's probably going to run the ball more than 15 times, maybe 20. I mean, they're pretty much wasting plays. The only negatives I could say about DeBoer's game plan last week was they wasted running the ball. You know, I mean, unless it's 3rd and 1, why waste it? So again, for me, I don't know if I would have played that as a standalone. They were sort of correlated to me on those where I'm kind of doubling down on that. But I think Joey posted some nice stuff about Penix over 22.5 completions. That makes a lot of sense for a lot of the reasons. I don't see why they're going to waste their time if they throw the ball 45 times, which seems absurd against Michigan. But again, if we're figuring 60, 65 snaps, if he's 45 passes, that still is 20 runs. Can he complete 50% of his passes? Yeah, I think so. And then I took a couple of the ancillary guys. I took Jalen Polk over 3.5 catches. That's a number that he's gotten to in 11 of 14 this year. He catches most of his balls. He had back-to-back no-shows against Washington State and Oregon where he had 10 targets, 2 drops, and no catches. But other than that, he caught 3 one game, and then he's been 4 or more every other game. So you're looking at 11 of 14. I think if Will Johnson does what he did with Maserati Marv and he travels a little bit with Odunze, you have the more favorable matchup for him on the outside. So I think that's worthwhile as well. And then lastly, I think I played Jack Westover, their tight end, who we saw get hot last week. I played him over 2.5 catches. I just think he's the proverbial safety blanket. Again, if you're not able to run the ball at all or really even attempting to, you can't just trust Penix to be throwing bucket balls all game. You got to have 4-yard flare outs if they're giving it to you with cushion. And I think that's where Westover, is just going to be catching those 4 or 5-yard flares and little outs and things like that. So those are kind of the main ones that I went after in this one.
I like it. Do you have any conviction as far as side total money line on the game?
No, not really. I mean, I think that this is a game. I mean, it's just going to be so game script dependent that unless you got something pre-market way off book, I didn't see a whole lot of value in the in the current numbers. I think I see more paths forward for Michigan, kind of in my diatribe about what I think they're capable of doing here. I mean, BP, you're the college football historian. Has there ever been a worse unit in a college football playoff championship game than what Washington's rush defense is? Has there ever been a worse unit?
No, it's historical. I mean, I'll just group in the whole defense. Offense or defense have not seen a unit as poor as Washington playing for the national championship, at least in the BCS playoff era.
Well, and that's the thing. What was either frustrating or joyful, depending on which side you were on. With Sark, he's normally such a brilliant, diagnostician and play caller. I think I really believe what I'm about to say. I've been thinking about it a little bit. I think that if Quinn Ewers, Jaden Blue, and Baxter, if only those 3 guys touched the ball last week, they beat Washington maybe by multiple scores. Meaning if they only ran the ball and threw passes to their backs, I don't see, because everything else they did trying to throw deep, throwing it 43 times, Sark just wasn't patient enough. They
agree.
They averaged 2.6 yards on first down compared to Washington's 10.6, and that was the announcer said that live, so that was maybe not the full game. But if he just would have stayed patient with the run, they could have run for 300 yards if they wanted to, but for whatever reason, Sark got away from it. I don't think Harbaugh is this is Harbaugh's type of game. If we can run it, we're going to run it until they make us stop.
Any plugs you want to get in, or you want to step up and say something? Knish, this is your show. I mean, I'm sitting here acting like 21 questions with him. You got anything, man?
No, I talk to this guy too much every day, so I'm glad we got to chop it up. I'm getting a text from him to 24/7, so it's good you're able to get in there. But no, I like and you know what? There's a little bit of discrepancy in the market there in the Penix. I know some guys, some other guys like the Penix under rushing yards. We went over on some low numbers there. And
under, he's going to be negative tonight. I don't know.
We think Michigan, and again, this number is cut. These were 1.5 and 2.5 for earlier in the day. But was thinking that people are reacting to this Michigan ultra, high blitz game plan versus a guy in Milroe who holds on to the ball. Now you're going to Michael Penix, who never holds on to the ball, almost never gets sacked, and I don't think Michigan's going to be bringing 6, 7, all these alt blitzes. Again, so all season they played light box, deep zone, keep everything in front of you, because that's how they played against Ohio State 3 straight years in a row to beat them. They're going to play the same exact way. They're going to go. What do you think they're going to play? They're not going to play they're not going to let Penix throw, to a Dunze, a single coverage down the field all day. So. And I do think Penix gets a couple of, design run. They've been as you said, you keep it in the bank all year. And then this is the kind of game you bring it out. You saw it versus Texas. I don't know if you'll see it a bunch, but I just don't. I don't think you're going to see the same type of Michigan defensive game plan as you did versus Bama, which would lend itself to Penix being able to get a couple of yards.
Franchise, before we let you go, if you don't mind, let's go rapid fire from the chat as questions as far as props, since you're the props guy. Big wall tone in the chat. Penix, we were just talking about it, over 4.5 rush yards. Is that still playable, guys? I know you played it at 1.5, 2.5.
That's the only way I'd go. I mean, going back to the same methodology as before, this is the game where you run him. Penix, who has a severe injury history, this is the game where you leave it all on the field. It would be over at that number. It'd be over or nothing.
What about Polk receiving yards over 53.5?
Yeah, I think so. I'd go over there as well.
I like the catches better than the yards, though. You agree on that one?
Yeah, I would definitely prefer the catches, just because, again, I think that there's, in lieu of the run game, I think that we're just going to see some short stuff just for them to kind of stay in third and manageable.
Spencer in the chat, there's a little disagreement here, but me and Tailgate are on McCarthy's actual over passing yards. You can find 197.5 is a fair number. I actually like the over on that one. And obviously franchise gave his thoughts a little bit there. He likes the attempts under for McCarthy. He thinks the run game for Michigan will be good. Anthony in the chat, how high do we go on the ladder franchise? 65 yards plus 674, too much to ask? He's talking about McCarthy's rushing yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably – I mean, I think that when I start getting into ladders, I'm talking about more like having fun, like just the fun stuff beyond that. I mean, I think that the regular way to try to make your money is the 23.5, 25.5, and then you want to have some fun, a memorable time up beyond that, but you don't typically get rich on playing ladders, And
there was a little, Spencer, there was a little better. It got knocked down a bit from what the chat was saying, but there was like 10-1, 850-1 on 59.5 out there. So there's a lot.
And if you're playing domestics, DraftKings is always going to be better on the alt market than FanDuel when it comes to some of those props. That yeah.
How about Crestman in the chat? Prop option for missed field goal in the game. Should I take it? I tend to like missed field goal or missed kick, and whether it's Super Bowl or national championships. A little bit higher intensity, higher pressure. What do you guys think of that? Obviously, price dependent.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't see Chris. I didn't see the price on it.
All right, he'll get back to us.
Chris is always, if he posts a price on it, we'll ask. But I would be dependent on. But I tend to agree with you too because, a little bit higher leverage, situation type game. Even though this is indoors and stuff, but I mean James Turner missed. He had barely missed all year. Missed one last week from 47. Had Michigan special teams last week. Almost sent me off the bridge. So this is the type of game those special team units can get a little dicey.
Tom in chat asked franchise what he thinks of that Rodgers anytime touchdown plus 235 pointed out by Alex in the chat.
Rodgers were I'm drawing a blank.
Tybo Rod, the backup running back for Washington, anytime touchdown.
Yeah, I probably not. I mean, I don't think that's.
I don't. Yeah,
anytime touchdown markets are
they're usually a rip.
If you play fantasy football, you know how random touchdowns are. I just don't like that market. Like unless it's someone that they're going for some type of milestone or something like that. It just. I know a lot of people that have success with them. I know what I do well, and I don't try to be anything that I'm not. So I'm capable and comfortable saying like I'm not the man for that type of market.
Very well said. And plus, anytime touchdowns, exact scores, all that, very high hold percentage for the books.
There was a few guys actually for Michigan last week that I thought, and then they didn't get. And one of them was Tyler Morris and Samaj Morgan, and guys that actually got featured in the game plan. The one guy they didn't post was Morris. So sadly, Joey K didn't cash that one. And now if you look at all those guys compared to last week's prices this week, they're all basically cut in half. So I agree. The anytime touchdown market, especially in college, is usually not worth much.
Couple more here. Tyler in the chat. You talked about Westover franchise for Washington. You like his receptions over. What about the Michigan tight end, Loveland, over 36.5 yards?
Yeah, I actually thought they were going to use him a little bit more last game.
Yeah,
I know it's probably not apples to apples, but Jatavian Sanders was, the best pass catcher that was for Texas. I don't know that they line him up. I don't know enough about his alignments. I don't think he might be, tight end and title only. But he would be a guy that I would be looking at, maybe going across the middle of the field, especially if you're doing some play action bootleg and stuff like that. So I don't, he would be, I think, if I were going to play an over on a pass catcher, I would look at him. I was actually a little bit tempted by Blake Corum over 5.5 receiving yards. I know he had the big one last game. His game log scares me a little bit. If I were Harbaugh, I would make sure he gets there because I think that's going to be there. I think we saw that with Texas last week. The backs, had near 100 yards. Yeah, I think Loveland, I'd lean that way.
Two more. Connor in the chat, McCarthy longest completion over 36.5. Capitalize on the light boxes from Washington. Well, I don't think they're going to have light boxes. I think it'll be – you better put some guys in that box. It's going to be a long night.
Yeah, I that's another market that I don't play a ton of. I would say that I do follow it a little bit. That's a pretty normal number. So you're essentially, that would be an average long touchdown number for a quarterback. Again, I lean to him not throwing as much, so I wouldn't be as inclined to do that. I'm just not as keen on backing his passing over. Again, unless the game takes an early turn that I don't foresee.
Crestman mentioned the missed field goal plus 145. What's that look like, guys, as far as that pricing?
My only qualms would be thinking both teams going to be pretty aggressive on fourth down. So I don't know if we'll get as many attempts. So usually I like the lean in terms of a college kicker, especially in a high leverage situation. Missing one, I just don't know how many attempts we're going to get in this game. So it would probably be one I would leave alone at that price. Just my opinion.
Final one for you, franchise. Adunze, very popular. If you don't believe me,
people love the last
show. That's all we just did a whole show on everybody wanting his over, and it went over, right? His receiving yards. Adunze, how about his reception 6.5? Any thoughts on that?
I think that I think they're going to be throwing it around a lot. I think Penix will get him the ball as much as he can. I think he's probably going to have one of the more difficult matchups in terms of the one-on-one with Johnson. Possibly. I mean, again, they could force feed him some of the short stuff, just trying to get the ball in his hands. I don't have a strong one on that one. I just preferred the cheaper options, which is kind of the theme for me of the day. Like if I'm backing the passing attack for Washington, I wanted to do it as cheap as possible. And if I'm backing the rushing attack for Michigan, I wanted to do it as cheaply as possible. So I don't have a strong take on that one. That's a lot of catches, but they probably will try.
You got any final thoughts? Anything you want to promote? I know I'm not saying this because franchise is doing the show with us. He writes a weekly column during college football season. Every ACC game, every SEC game, breaks it down. He has a unique perspective. It's different from my thought process. It's a must read for me every week. I really could give a shit about what most people think when it comes to college football. A few guys are the exception to that rule. Franchise is one of them when he's breaking down the games and talking about what he is betting at. Any other things that you want to promote to the people out there?
No, I don't think so. I'm a cheap date. So I appreciate the kind words and hope you guys have a winning and enjoyable Michigan win tonight. If Bama can't take it, give it to the Dragon Slayer.
Hey, thanks for coming on, franchise.
Thanks,
we
brother.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right. There he is. International man of mystery. Franchise. Like that. Little disguise there. How long have you known him? That's my first time ever talking to him. I mean, I've reached out to him on Twitter and subread his stuff. How long have you been betting with franchise?
I would say the better part of 4 or 5 years now. I think we initially, he used to do capping the game forum where he posted a lot of his stuff a few years ago. And then mostly transitioned just so I knew him from back when he was doing it at CTG. And a couple of guys are all in the same circle. We probably bet with each other more, seriously in the last few years. But as you said, obviously a sharp guy, has always, had a unique perspective on college football, and a good guy to work with, a guy that, I consider a friend now. We talk about more than just football, but obviously that's how it got started. So yeah, it's always and Brandon, he bought this. He used to do dynasty stuff for a place, doesn't do that anymore. He bought his own website, and it's brandonchicken.com. I forget the origin of the name, but that's where, as people are asking for the link, that's where he puts the link. I think he usually finds it on Twitter or posts it on Twitter, but that's where he posts those game recaps every week. So,
I highly recommend it. He thinks about stuff differently. And I also like seeing what he bet, because if I miss a number on the open, more than likely he's the guy that beat me to a number when it's betting opening numbers at Circa or whatnot. So very sharp individual. One of the best guys in the college football space. Really respect him, to say the least. I've got a few minutes here before we bring on Douglas Farmer and Parker Fleming and get their thoughts on the big game coming up here. Let me get to a couple things in the chat, unless you got something you want to get off your chest here. I know.
I will say, so we talked about hypotheticals and betting what. So we don't tell the NIL hardball, but got some Washington position here. I will say I was expecting a much cheaper Michigan money line tonight.
I was too.
Then I ended up, and I just, that was.
Did you wait, or did you get some? Because I waited. I thought I'd get it today.
I waited and ended up having to pay more than I wanted to be honest. So it made myself I was I was hoping for, like a minus 175, something. I thought this game, flat 4 or something. It obviously went the other way. And now, I had to. So I'm going to, if I don't hit the middle window there, going to cost myself some money, but it is what it is from a market read thing. I didn't think we'd get to, some places have even touched 6 for a minute. So I guess I was a little surprised at the movement out there. And going to cost myself some change there on having to lay a heavier money line price.
It's funny you say that, minus 175. That's what I was thinking we might see today at some point. It was there on the open. I just waited because I was like, well, if it's going to open like this, how far is it going to go? Because I just had this thought process, like, people didn't like the Washington number against Oregon. At least they questioned it. I'm sure they bet Washington in that game. Washington cashed their tickets. I'm sure they went back to the well against Texas. Washington wins another game outright. I just thought we'd see a little bit more recreational Washington money line. Just haven't seen it. D-Lee, we will get to your stuff. We will close the show off with the forced bet on the side and total. We'll wait for that one at the very end for me and Knish as far as side and total there. Mark S., yep, you're right. Michigan hat, minus 210. Again, thank you to Tony for sending that to me. I will say this, if Harbaugh leaves Michigan and I don't like their new coach, this will be the last time I wear a Michigan hat. I'm wearing this out of respect for the guy that was born in the same hospital as me. Love Harbaugh. Love the whole family to death.
I know we'll have plenty of offseason content. I do think tonight's his last game at Michigan. And Sharon Moore is your next Michigan coach. So is
that your best bet tonight? I think that's a pretty good bet.
I think this is a win or lose, to be honest with you. But I think this is it. So hopefully you can go out with a natty and then go for that Super Bowl.
Tailgate 10. There we go. I should have got to this when franchise was on. Glad you guys could fulfill franchise Make-A-Wish. You tweeted about that. That's funny.
No, it's good. I know Moretto tried to. He's got a business going, kids and stuff. So it's a little hard to get him on for the right time. But I'm glad we were able to get him on.
Yeah. Again, highly respect the guy. Mike in the chat. Yep. Worst season finale since Game of Thrones. Little sidebar when Zach's like, "Oh, saving the best for last." Our last show. I'm like, of the season, or is this it? We get canceled. I know we had a bad year as far as best bets, but my goodness, I thought this, the way Phillips was talking before the show, I thought this was it. Final hurrah. No more Knish myself. Dirty Bulk in the chat. Michigan halftime.
Halftime. So it would be Michigan to lead at halftime and win the game as well.
Okay.
I don't mind that. What's the first half?
I think a lot of it's going to be coin toss, man. I think both teams take the ball. Don't you take the ball if you're either team?
I haven't. I don't know the trend this year and this is something not like
it's not a trend for Michigan, but I think the last time they took the ball was against Penix or something. I thought someone said that.
Interesting.
When he's in Indiana.
But I don't mind that halftime, full time.
Insight in the chat. Speaking of that, Penix faced Michigan and Harbaugh before. 38-21 Indiana victory. That Michigan team was fucked up in 2020. I'm just being honest. 10x for 30 of 50 passing, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I no correlation with me.
Yeah, that COVID year, you would if you wouldn't recognize that Michigan team from this Michigan team, because that year was rough.
Hypothetical. Before we bring on the guys here in a few minutes, got one for you. If the Ohio State game,
a great one,
doesn't get canceled, is Harbaugh fired? And they get beat by 40 points.
I definitely think he was closer to the door than most people would realize, because they made all those adjustments in his contract to basically take away money, take away incentives and stuff for him to. I don't know, but I would say, if he got buried in that game, there was a lot of people calling for it anyway, but it was a lot closer than I think most people think.
Amazing. God bless you, Connor Stallions. No, I'm joking. Cornelius Johnson, under 41.5 receiving yards, minus 130, hit that number one time in the last 8. Tailgate likes the over.
I will say, if they're gonna, he's been sneaky in one of those guys where the play action, he's like their play action. Everybody's loading the box. They go deep to Johnson. I wouldn't play over anymore at this number, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Rivers got 36.5. I think that's still playable.
Yeah. Over. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a deeper shot to him tonight.
Tailgate, speaking of him, franchise the GOAT, especially because he buries Knish on Twitter every week. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? If you dish it, you got to take it, baby.
Are you playing the Michigan Lions? I see you were trying to bet 6 figures on that. The moneyline parlay, Michigan, Detroit this week.
I should have just bet the Michigan money line at that time because it was 192, if I'm recalling that correctly. And now I'm having to lay. Let me say that, and I know obviously the spreads are different. Would have more conviction in the Michigan money line inside tonight than the Lions. I know friend of the show, Hitman, played some Rams earlier
plus
today.
3.5. Mr. Muscles likes your Lions, though.
Yeah,
where are you going to fall on that one? I think 3 is the fair number. I
agree too. I was probably going to see, I was hoping that his release would get me a little bit cheaper there, but I haven't seen a cheap 3 pop yet.
What's your thoughts on Stafford coming back?
I mean, it's a good narrative. I'm not huge on this Rams team to begin with, just in overall, but I hope we can take, it'd be one of the nice to, hey, listen, you can't be scared. You got to slay the demons, baby.
Without further ado, we'll finish out the chat as we finish out the show as far as our final thoughts. But without further ado, let's get to the guys that hold down the fort that actually had a much better best bet record than us as far as the Hit the Books family. The Never Punt, Never Parlay guys, Douglas Farmer, Parker Fleming, not to be confused with the Parker Fleming special teams coach for Ohio State, because every week my Twitter timeline is like trending, and I'm like, Parker Fleming, what did he do now? What advanced box scores got piled up? And half the time it's people bitching about the Ohio State special teams. So, guys, happy national championship game. Good to see you. I mean, that season went by quick. Saw you guys down here in Vegas before the season even started. Those 4 or 5 months went by quick. I'll open the floor to you guys. You guys can take this wherever you want. Thoughts, player props. How you guys feeling about the game? Any strong convictions? How are you attacking tonight's game?
Yeah, well, thanks for first off, thanks for having us on. It does feel like Vegas was just yesterday. And yes, to dispel the rumors, I still have a job. Everyone calling for Parker Fleming to be fired and thrown in jail every week. They're not talking about me; it's another guy. So, I like this one a whole lot. I'm still a little angry at the semifinal for Michigan here, because if they just made that damn extra point, I would have been like 4-0, because I had under what was it 45.5, under 45. I had Alabama plus 1.5, Alabama plus 2. And if they just made that freaking extra point, we hadn't gone to overtime, I'd have been sitting pretty. Instead, they totally tanked me there. So a little bit rough. I'm sure you guys have talked about all this, and I'll toss it over to Douglas here in a second. But I think the biggest question is just like, what kind of game are we going to get? Are we going to get Michigan like 13 personnel? Like, hey, your defense is 65th in EPA per rush. We're just going to run it down your throat. Are we going to get the, hey, JJ McCarthy's healthy and we can be annoying through the air? Like, look at those crossing routes against Alabama and how frustrating that was. I think what Michigan's offense does to set the tone is really kind of the defining factor here. I'm really on market. I've got this 30-26. So that was opening total and opening line. I mean, just almost exactly there. And so I'm slightly inclined to believe that we might get an over here, just because I don't think that Penix is going to stop slinging the ball regardless of what happens. Dylan Johnson not 100%, but again, that's not a huge edge for me. I think the most interesting thing for me is Washington money line is getting big enough now where I'm like, you know what? Why not take the underdog and just see if it cooks.
Brad, I want to thank you for that introduction of Parker. It brings me great joy every time he goes through that angst. It's nice to see Parker squirm a little bit. So thank you for that. I'm with Parker, leaning on the over. But in a title game, I get a little worried. These guys might get tense. Play callers might get tense in the second half. I'd much rather play the first half over, which you can get at 27.5 with some juice, or 28. And that's just betting on this game is so game script dependent. Both teams are going to lean into what they want the game script to be, and that's going to escalate things before halftime.
I'm going to sneak this in immediately because a lot of people are asking about next year already before we closed the book on tonight. If you're not aware of what Douglas does, I've been reading his Notre Dame stuff for years. Somebody asked me, give me a sneaky national title pick for next year.
Oh, no.
And you know me, I am not a homer whatsoever. In fact, I'm anti-Notre Dame. I kind of like Notre Dame next year as a team, not only to make the playoffs, but make a run. What do you think of that? I know it's early, Douglas, but I want you are more of an insider when it comes to the Irish than me. Am I crazy for actually liking Notre Dame for a change next year?
Notre Dame's usual greatest strength right now is its greatest uncertainty, and that is why I would hesitate for a moment. Its offensive line is far from known for next season. It's got some promising young players, but these guys are young. That's part of why Riley Leonard fits them well. He can disguise some of the offensive line's weaknesses with his mobility. But if you're going to endorse Notre Dame, it's usually because of the offensive line, and I'm not ready to give you that endorsement. So, Brad, just slow down a little bit and see how effusive the springtime praise is.
I like them, Brock.
One game versus Oregon State's 7-on-7 team, and now he's winning.
Hey, man, you got the preview. All the guys are out. You saw the team. What the team's going to be, man.
As we know from the Florida game last year, bowl games against Oregon are a perfect preview, or Oregon State are a perfect preview of what's going to happen next season. So I think the argument, Brad,
now they're winning the national title next year.
the tier team, like what's Notre Dame, like 2,500, right?
20 or 25 I've seen.
Yeah, so like that tier is like Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Clemson, USC. Oklahoma maybe is close to that, a little further off. I'm like, maybe Notre Dame out of that tier. But yeah, that would be my biggest argument, I think, is probably value on that, right?
The two things that are standing out to me here are, Parker, what you're saying without saying there is it's the schedule game. Notre Dame, as of now, who knows what Louisville, A&M, or Florida State are going to become. They might change their rosters still. But Notre Dame's schedule looks pretty advantageous. And two, Joey, you've got to realize, I have, behind Brad's back, described him as an irrational Notre Dame fan who doesn't know he's irrational. If he's coming in optimistic, that is a heck of a change of pace coming out of Brad Powers that I never saw coming.
I agree. I haven't seen that. Listen, this guy's been fading Notre Dame for 2 years. We're doing the show, and now we're betting them, the 20-1 to win the natty. It
does explain some of your best bets record that Brad kept fading Notre Dame this season when it was doing pretty well.
Yeah, that was apparently Marcus Freeman should have been. He's the new Dan Campbell. Guy, 70% ATS there. We could have just backed him, but. I'm shook from I didn't know this was going to turn into Notre Dame.
You got to get that in there. I might not talk to him for a while. I'm telling you guys, they're going to be favored in every game. And you saw Marcus Freeman's recruited a lot better than Brian Kelly ever did. The depth of the team showed against, I know Oregon State had a bunch of opt-outs, but Notre Dame has as many opt-outs as anybody. They just truck that team. I mean, I don't have to worry about team culture. Mike Denbrock, they're spending money pulling him from LSU as the offensive coordinator. I'm very optimistic on Notre Dame. Let's get back on schedule, though, guys. I'm sorry I took us off on a national championship preview, but anything in the prop market that kind of interests you, whether it's Michigan, Washington, anything that you guys really took advantage of?
Go ahead.
I did. So I did the BetUS show today, and so some of my lines are specific to them. I haven't been as sharp since because I've been trying to work today. Well, after I did that, but I had a couple here that were that I liked a little bit. I think over there you could get Roman Wilson to score a touchdown at plus 160. I loved how confident and comfortable McCarthy looked at the end of the game. Last game with Roman Wilson, just saying, hey, we need to move the ball and we're going to get it to our guy. You look at the target share, you look at how much they shift around, and really, it's not that they're one dimensional in a bad way. It's just they know what they want to do and know what they want to create. And I love to see again McCarthy a little bit healthy and Wilson really, really involved. So I liked that a lot. I think first TD Corum, again, I would look at the markets of this, but over at BetUS that was plus 350. And I like Corum first TD because I think Washington's secondary does a good job of not allowing explosives, even if they do allow a little bit of success there. And so I could see Michigan moving down the field pretty well and then getting in the red zone. And I think any red zone situation, Corum's just going to absolutely eat them up. Michigan's like 12th in finishing drives in the nation. Washington's defense 100th in allowing finishing drives. And so those two TDs were interesting to me earlier today.
I'm going to echo you, Parker, but I do want to acknowledge something that Brad and Joey were talking with Franchise about. Anytime touchdown markets they're ripping us off. And Brad might have noticed earlier in the season, I would do the math on Notre Dame games just to show how egregious the hold was compared to the total. Oh. You'd like to think in a game like this, maybe it's a little tighter. We've got that much more of a market. Parker's Blake Corum first touchdown, I prefer it first Michigan touchdown. Just coin flip, take that out of it, and you can get that. I'm seeing a plus 165. I just like that a little bit more simply because of coin flip and who knows what. But to Parker's point about if they're in the red zone, it's Blake Corum. He scored at least 2 touchdowns in 10 out of 14 games this season. The 4 games he didn't were blowouts where he got 6 fewer touches than he did in the other 10 games per game. So if I can get Blake Corum at 2 or more touchdowns at plus money, I'm seeing a plus 135 at DraftKings right now. That to me makes sense. If Michigan gets into the red zone 3 times, Blake Corum's going to have half a dozen red zone carries. If he doesn't have half a dozen red zone carries, it's because he took 2 of them into the end zone on the first touch he got. That is, to me, the best prop that I like. And it plays right into, we're all discussing the over effectively with every prop we mentioned, it seems like.
No, I agree.
It's scary, but that's where I was going with a lot of this stuff was over. Even a couple guys I respect, they said their portfolio is more overs than unders for this game. So a little scary when you're in that. Are you in the similar boat, Joey?
No, I this is usually, I think I know some guys for a while that would spray championship game unders almost regardless of matchup and that, but I tend to lean that way as well. And as you said, they have Michigan tendency throughout the season is they have not gone to anybody else in the red zone. The Mullings, maybe in garbage time, Donovan Edwards has had the season from hell, and it doesn't seem like they trust him to give him the ball anymore in almost any scenario. And they don't QB sneak it with McCarthy almost ever. He's not really that type of quarterback. So if they're inside the 5, it's like, and they're going to run the ball. It's Corum. It's been the entire year Corum. Why change script now? So yeah, I agree with the read there for sure.
And tonight it could be inside the 15. They're going against a weak Russ defense that struggles in the red zone in scoring range. And you say inside the 5, it could be inside the 20 for Blake Corum tonight. Just dial it up and run it down their throats.
The other one I like kind of along those lines, I see right now you got a Jack Westover 2.5 receptions. FanDuel, you can get that plus money for over there. I like him last week. I think, Washington does a really good job at getting involved at kind of all 4 levels with like their 3 wide receivers, and Westover had a really good game. Westover's big games have also been Utah, Oregon State, and Texas. And so when they've had, some defensive struggles, they've really gone to him kind of shorter. If Michigan's pass defense is what it's advertised, and they show up and can absolutely lock down the corners, I expect Westover to kind of be the outlet, get some of those shorter passes. Can they do something quick and go? So I love an over 2.5 on Westover too.
Zach, let's go ahead and put that as a best bet. That was Franchise liked it. That's Parker Fleming approved. That's approved by me. Knish talks about the passing game being an extension of the running game for Washington tonight. I like that prop a lot. Let's count that in the record, over 2.5 for Westover.
I had Franchise on when you had him on earlier. Has there been any discussion of any under in this game, but in any prop? I don't know that I heard him bring up one.
No, he did not. I wrote them all. Dylan Johnson, just because of bad numbers.
Right, that's a little skewed.
Yeah,
that was just bad numbers by
That
Circa.
one's a
I
little
wish I'd
skewed.
have saw that shit.
If I had to go under on like we just talked Donovan Edwards, I don't know if he's going to be he wasn't a big part of the game plan versus Bama. Kalel Mullings is better at running the ball than Edwards in 22. And so
what's wrong with him? Is he hurt? What's wrong with Edwards this year, man?
Yeah, he had some
You're the
physical
Michigan
stuff.
guy.
He actually did an interview talked about this week that he's having some mental health struggles stuff. So it's one of those where I kept expecting him to get back in the flow. It never happened. And his numbers are still kind of like, I think you've got rushing and receiving is like 51 or something like that. I could only go, I played some unders on him last game. I don't think even in this, type of scenario, if they're changing game plans or any of that, if anything, I think it's more Mullings, not more Edwards.
And more McCarthy running.
And more McCarthy.
More
It's like, it just hasn't happened for him this year. And I don't think, we've got 13, 14 games of data that it just hasn't worked out. So to me, and you saw Mullings caught a ball last week. They were using him in out routes. Like he seems to have taken the almost the running back 2 away from him.
Parker, Douglas, whoever has strongest take, anything Washington wide receivers, because that seems to be a very popular prop. Obviously, Odunze gets a lot of the treatment as far as our listeners and everybody. That would be one that I would probably shade towards more negative. I think it'll be other options, whether it's Polk, McMillan, or like we mentioned, Westover. I'm a little bit more skeptical of Odunze's receiving yards and catches tonight.
Franchise brought up Polk, and I think he said it was up to 53.5 now. I'm very much on Jalen Polk tonight. Odunze is going to get matched up at least. Maybe not shut down because he is who he is, but matched up. And that's going to create – it's the same as the tight end thought. They're going to have to go to options 3 and 4, and that's going to create yardage. I prefer the yards to the catch because then I kind of need only one, but I can understand the exact opposite thought process of 5 short completions creates a receptions prop cash.
Can I
like,
go
how
kind of
often
counter on the Odunze? Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, can I go counter on the Odunze and just ask a question? Like, are we sure Washington can't scheme Odunze getting the ball closer to the line of scrimmage? His average depth of target is 15.6. I mentioned that with kind of the layering. Like Polk is 14, McMillan's 10, Westover 6.8. Is it? I mean, it's entirely on the table for me. I think that they know, hey, Penix has a cannon. Penix can get the ball into a tight window, but the margin for error is going to be way smaller. Why don't we run some weird shit? Sorry, I don't know if I can say that here. Why don't we run some weird stuff? I figured joking about cursing on a show with Knish was a good bit there. But are we sure that DeBoer they can't scheme up Odunze just getting the ball a little bit more creatively? Like I think that's where I'm interested in maybe an over. Like he basically gone over, close to over, at or over the prop for every game this season. And I think if you believe they're static and just kind of chucking it to him one way, yeah, he's going to get completely shut off. I'm inclined to believe they can try to make him a little bit more of a Swiss Army knife and get the offense running through him, even if the downfield stuff doesn't work, kind of immediately.
Hey, that goes in with my Polk over yardage because you're kind of saying that maybe they use the other guys deeper and have Odunze working underneath. So the deep shots for me get me over, and Odunze can mess up the game from the interior.
Do you guys, how much do you get in on the props on the national championship game? Are you heavily involved or more side total guys?
I've got some of that 2+ touchdowns out of Blake Corum. Not to make Joey feel too appreciated around. I've had a Michigan future since July at +950. I'm willing and mostly just trying to stay away from putting myself in a compromised position at this point.
I like it.
I know my friend of the show, Lockie, on YBYB he was touting the Michigan for a lot of the season too. So
do you have one, Knish, Mr. Wolverine?
Actually don't, because I was expecting, all year I was like, well, if we get to the end of this, lose the Penn State game or something, I'll buy the dip. There was no dip. We didn't lose any games. So I unfortunately, it's like the guy who passed up Bitcoin at $1,000 because he, was trying to get it at 500. So no, hopefully I'll, be rooting at home, but no future in the portfolio for me.
And in addition to the cash, I want that to come home because if it does, I officially beat Parker in bowl games, win totals, and futures this season, losing the regular season by only one game. I need that bragging rights.
Wait,
I'll tell
okay,
you
Warren,
guys
are you
that
counting?
over
Are you
us.
counting the bullshit? Are you counting the bullshit? Yes or no? Notre Dame USC game that you were like,
Yes.
if it works, I'm going to count
Yes,
it. If it
that is
doesn't work for
included.
me, I'm not counting it. Yeah, I mean, as someone who, great, my bowl season record was bad. I'm there. That's fine. As someone who had two of the sickest tickets in terms of going into conference championship weekend with Louisville and Oklahoma State to win the conference, I'm feeling pretty good at the end of the season. So I faded. I chilled out a little bit in bowl season and didn't go too crazy just because I felt like I had done pretty well so far this season.
I'm not saying you didn't. I'm just saying that I want the bragging rights here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong with some head-to-head bragging rights. Some of us on the show, get to enjoy those spoils. So, hey, it's a nice position to be in.
Parker, it's like we Never Punt, Never Parlay have bragging rights over Powers and Joey.
That's
not saying much.
It's not show only.
I think
show bragging rights.
Drunk baby flipping coins had bragging rights over us this year.
I also think if you made me spam more than 3 bets a week on a show, I'd probably look a little worse too. So I get that. Volume matters. What do you guys? So did you guys have any action, Brad or Joey, about? I've hopped on. I'm sure rehashing a little bit, but did you guys have action on a side for this when it opened, or have you changed?
I've been waiting.
I'd think it's at 6 now for Michigan now.
It felt bad.
Yes, it's touching that high. I laid 3.5 on the open. Hasn't gone well for me all year, so I mean, probably load up Washington money line when you see something like that. But my numbers actually were closer to 6. I mean, it's a very Washington. I would say of any team that's made the national championship game in recent memory, very tough team to power rate. If you're just doing basic power ratings, because I mean, let's face it, they had 5-6 game stretch, not 1 or 2 off games, literally 6 games to close the regular season, where they were not even, forget top 5, top 10. They weren't even playing like a top 20 team. I mean, legitimately almost should have lost to Arizona State, could have lost to Stanford, could have lost to Washington State, could have lost to Oregon State, every damn game. But when they flipped the script here, I mean, end of the season, how much do I upgrade a team? It's 1 data point now out of 12 instead of 1 out of 3. I've struggled, and I'm not sure I'm the only one in that regard. So I had a little bit of an overlay on this game. So we'll see. Hey, you guys don't mind getting a couple chat questions, do you?
No, bring them on.
Zachary in the chat. We have a pretty sarcastic chat. Has anyone factored in Michigan has the Jordan logo on their jersey? Michigan all minus 23. Have you guys done anything? Joking aside,
it ain't cheap.
Have you guys done anything in the alt market in the game?
Go ahead, Parker.
No, I was going to say something stupid about back when I was like covering TCU day in, day out. I was doing Gary Patterson uniform cover analysis, like based on what color uniform they were wearing, how they were against the spread. But I haven't done that for Michigan or anybody this year.
Well, I'll tell you what, Knish, you might have you seen their uniforms they're going with? I would have preferred the traditional Michigan uniform. They're going all blue tonight.
All blue.
Yeah, you know what? I like. I'm more of a blue than a maize guy. So
really,
maize is not a color; it's a vegetable.
Hey, speak the truth there, man. That's exactly. Hey, anything's better than the Notre Dame green, if you know what I'm saying. So, little maize and blue, baby.
They're blue and gold schools. So come on, Zach. Did you guys see Book It with Trent? Washington money line tonight. He was saying congrats to you guys for the Michigan Wolverines.
I will say it got farther out now where like I know we can make, and again I think Michigan win, but like I mean there's some 195s out there.
Yeah.
It's just like I couldn't shame somebody for playing the price now, especially you might get a 2-1 before kickoff. Like I just
and like I'm not going to pretend my model's this well calibrated, but like I've got 39 win percent right for Washington. Okay, you're going to give me 33 less than maybe even less than 30 if it falls to 2-1. Like that's on principle, that's an edge, right? Like the Washington money line feels like the biggest edge I have in this game, even though I don't think it's going to happen.
And Brad,
it's stunning. Oh, I mean, you would have thought the opposite was true. I really thought I was going to get a discount on Michigan's money line today. I'm shocked that I would agree with that. I would say due to the variance, a bowl season, we've said this. If you're going to bet the dog, you better put a little bit on the money line because the upsets happen much more frequently during bowl season. Justin just had a compliment. Love seeing Hit the Book squad together. This is awesome. Yeah, it is cool. We should do this more often. Hopefully you guys can boost our winning percentage up a little bit more. So
yeah, I was gonna say we need these guys on for the picks.
Yeah.
Let's
We can do the
let's
talking
get Knish in
and the
Vegas
BS,
next
and you
year
guys
too.
come on
Yeah.
for the best bets.
Well, Parker, for Joey to go to Vegas, he would have to confirm that he's an actual living, breathing person and not just a valid scam.
You leave this swanky abode here, so that would be tough. But no, I agree. I expect, you know what, and I told Moretto, if we're putting it on the pizza man's dime officially, I'm in. So hopefully Zach's content chief by then, and we can charge it to Pizzola.
Do you guys have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to plug? Watch about party tonight? Anything special you guys are doing tonight or moving forward?
I'm not going to watch.
I thought about that for my mental. After the Alabama game, I was up till 3 a.m. I felt like hell the next day. So I
2
was
years
like,
ago,
maybe I should go watch a movie or something, come out and check my phone.
2 years ago, I had Georgia at 8-1 for far more than I have at the moment. And I knew my mental health would be better off if I did not watch that game. So I went to a dive bar underneath a rock club and just drank a beer there until I knew the game was over. And I might do that again.
There you go.
Nice.
Spanky would have
Douglas is Brad Pitt in Moneyball. That's it. He just doesn't watch the games.
Yeah,
just looks at the numbers.
You can,
as someone who lost most of his sanity, that's a good strategy.
You can only justify doing it for this game. All the rest of the season, I need to watch the games to learn about next week. I need to be planning forward. Right now, this game doesn't impact anything moving forward. I can not watch this and be all the same for it.
Yeah, I got the mother-in-law in town. She's taking care of the kid. I'm going to open a couple beers and watch the game and fire off some flaming hot tweets. So check me out on Twitter. But other than that, it's the end of the season. We're just enjoying it, man. Just enjoying it.
Well, appreciate you guys coming on. So any final predictions for you? I know you're rooting for Michigan, Douglas. 30-26 for you. You're going to go with that'd be nice for the model.
It'd be great. We had a great bowl season. I wish I had shut up and listened to my stupid numbers during bowl season a little more. Maybe I'd have done a little bit better. But yeah, I think we're in that range right there, 30-26. I think we'll flirt with an over, and I think Michigan wins. Having the model one side, I can root for Washington guilt-free and say, I win either way. So should be a lot of fun.
Expect a first half over and a second half of tension, and that's why I'm not going to watch because of that tension.
Fair enough. Guys, really appreciate you guys jumping on here.
Sure.
Have fun. Enjoy the games. We'll be talking to you in the future. Are you guys going to be doing a lot of off-season shows?
Talk to Moretto and Zach, I suppose.
We'll figure something out.
I got an interesting, Zach's telling me, final one of the season, the way he said it. I was like, are we canceled? I mean,
sorry, do you guys know that I'm the best college baseball handicapper on the planet? I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Oklahoma fans.
Yes.
Boomer Sooner.
This offseason.
If you're handing out winners, there will be an audience. I don't care what market it is. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate you. All right, Knish. We'll wrap it up here. Go to the basics, back to basics, fundamentals, the chat. Sharon Moore a lock, or will they go to after DeBoer? I've heard whispers about that, but I would say more, 90%.
I would agree with you. I don't think. I mean, it'd be one of those. If you could get Kalen DeBoer, I don't know how you would pass it up, but I think they would just elevate more. So yeah, 90%, 95%. And I honestly, at this point, I would wager on that happening. I think Harbaugh takes an NFL.
Is that available? I've seen some bet online stuff that I think you only get $25 down.
Right.
But it was favoring Harbaugh like minus 180 NFL. Last I looked at it. Harbaugh was almost Scott Frost. Yeah, that's kind of our discussion.
It was legitimately. It wasn't Frost-esque close, but it was close.
Longest touchdown under 48.5 minus 110. I hate being square, but I'm not betting under on that one. I could see big plays.
Yeah, especially if you would think Washington, right? But and it could happen. But
I think Michigan's capable of it.
I agree. I think if Washington goes very ultra aggressive in the trying to load the box and run game, I think you could get one of those big. So yeah, I'm
thinking like the Buckeye type game script the last few years. I think Joel Klatt did a good job. He's talking about the similarities between Michigan. They are built to defend a team like Washington
Yeah.
because they changed their scheme up to defeat or at least defend better an Ohio State passing attack. So I could see that kind of game script where they keep everything in front of them, but Michigan offensively, I think, can be boom or bust.
That would be the Adunze counter I'd have. Is you remember, and I remember this vividly, Marvin Harrison saying after the game, Michigan threw stuff at him that he hadn't seen in his entire career and limited. And again, he still made plays.
Yeah, he did.
But I think he was only 4 or 5 catches. And I would assume they'll go with the same type of coverage on Adunze tonight. So yeah, and again, a great player will make his plays, but 6.5 is a bit rich for me.
Nick C, let's go Wolverines Natty Lion Super Bowl. I wouldn't mind that. I know you would. I mean, would you?
I wouldn't mind that, but
what would happen with you? I mean, would
think
you?
One actually going to happen tonight. Yeah, I was going to say I might just. I don't have to. I don't have to. Watch sports anymore if that happens. But
I think you'd be happy with a Lions one playoff win.
Yeah,
you?
I was going to say we could a win just to end for the stupid streak of people saying we haven't won a playoff game in 800 years or whatever it is. So, but I think one is actually going to happen tonight. The other one, we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're okay with there. Over 7 total touchdowns at plus 100. Where you at on that one?
I'd lean that way.
Sounds about right?
Yeah, I mean, it fits in with I would lean that way just because I think you're going to get 2 teams that are pretty aggressive on fourth down, and I would expect DeBoer to be ultra aggressive.
Has to be
tonight.
Yeah, I think he has to be right off the bat.
Yep. I would lean that way. Same thing with when we talked not playing the field goal proper or any field goal prop. Someone said a sack. Earlier in the chat, there was a guy asked about sack. I haven't found a total sacks because I was hoping for a Michigan under. So if anybody sees that in the proper, where like a sacks over under, let me know because I would probably lean towards, depending on the number, of course, under sacks for both teams.
And you played Jalen Harrell under.
Yeah, there was some yes nos at FanDuel and Harrell was the one that you could get the cheapest no price. And to be honest, he was the guy they had Stewart and McGregor listed. Harrell's just he's not the pass rush specialist of those guys. He's more of the set the edge type of guy. And he had 6.5 on the year, but 3.5 were versus like UNLV.
How many sacks are they going to get on Penix? I mean, this ain't the Alabama game. I mean,
right. So
I'd be stunned if they got 3 as a team. Wouldn't you if they got 3?
I agree.
Over like 1.5, 2, right?
I was hoping that they would but that was I just bet he was the cheapest one. He was the guy that I liked even the best there I think that moved a bit, but I was looking for other sack stuff. I wasn't able to find it. So that was the only thing if anybody's got that out there, but I don't think it's around.
What was your thoughts on the overall prop availability? Obviously more than your typical college football game. I'm not used to it. I don't bet a lot of it, but I was a little underwhelmed. Were you?
I tend to agree with you there. I was hoping for a little bit more as well, especially. And you know what? The other thing is and we talked about it with Doug and Parker, like some of the hold on these stuff, especially if you want to do like touchdown markets or alt markets to that stuff is pretty unattractive. So I was hoping for more just like random stuff. Like a lot of times the Super Bowl, you get like totally ridiculous stuff. Actually, some of that stuff I think was offshore at some places that but for the most part, there wasn't as much at the domestic stuff that I was hoping for.
Joe in the chat, anything from Blue Horseshoe? I was just checking. Nothing. He's been all quiet.
Where did he end up in the millions?
I don't know, top 10 maybe. I don't know. He ended up having a partial of the freaking Survivor.
I heard that. I didn't know he had a piece of one of those.
Yeah, guy's got his hands in everything.
Yeah, I know.
Unbelievable.
It's very, very, very frustrating for the good people out there that have to
anymore. He's already. I live in Seven Hills. He's at the top of the hill. I'm at the bottom. So what more does this guy need? Jesus. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Tyler in the chat, thoughts on JJ under an interception?
I'd lean that way just because I don't.
Did you see the Penix interception numbers? I was like, he's going to throw a pick tonight. was like minus 250 when I first one I looked at.
I know. I was looking at that. That's why I didn't play either. Just price wise, I didn't get on.
Look
either
at that.
one.
I thought that'd be like minus 150. When I saw, I was like, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, I think Penix will throw a pick tonight. I couldn't believe that price.
Yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah. Kyle in the chat, under the radar long shot player to have a big game or score a touchdown for us DFS players. Do you have a guy on Michigan?
Man, that's and Kyle, this is what I was talking earlier when I was looking for the guys that, the Samaj Morgan, the Tyler Morris, the Khalil Mullings, they were all a big part of the game plan in the Alabama game. So their prices all got screwed for this game. One guy that I don't think got a target last game that I would be Barner, the Michigan tight end too. Love the tight ends weren't featured, and now everybody seems to be kind of off that. Would expect Michigan to go back to the bread and butter of running the ball in tight ends today. So if you can get an AJ Barner, and again, his anytime price wasn't. I think I got 10-1 versus Bama, and it was like half that versus so maybe a Barner yards, or if you've got him out at a super cheap DFS price.
You want a big time long shot, Culp? I like the backup tight end for Washington. I think he's a good call.
Someone mentioned this in the chat. Westover did have a lower body injury that was on the and so I think he's fine. But I agree that if that flares up or if that's a little bit worse than maybe they're letting on, that Culp could be the guy there that starts getting reps.
It's even like 10-1. That doesn't.
I know.
No, it's just. No. I mean, I would think long shot I was going to be 20-1 or better. I guess those markets just don't. I don't know. I can't believe it. Speaking of that, before we sign off, I mean, because people were asking us about it. Heisman market's already out of a few books. National championship market's out of a few books. I haven't made a bet yet. I think some of the prices are ridiculous. So I'll probably wait closer to spring. Let the portal.
Here's a little. I've heard this from people in there when they initially post these. This is a little devious thing in that they put more hold in the market when they first post it. So you'll get as the market gets closer, they lessen the hold percentage. You'll get, but unless they make them, like a mistake on one price or something, the prices will improve the closer you get to the season. So I agree. I would wait, especially national title. I would, we'll have plenty of shows.
I don't even know if I want to bet it. I mean, I was joking kind of about the Notre Dame stuff, but I mean, we got a bracket now. I mean, I'd like to see the pathway.
Right. You got to win 3-4 games now, depending on who you are.
So yeah, it's just not about, what team can actually run the table 11-1, 12-0. Now you're like, well, I mean, this team could mess up, lose a couple games, still make it, and have a favorable pathway. This is in the weeds, and we can talk about this more in depth. I have something as far as the bracket. I think the 5 seed is the seed you want, believe it or not. You play the group of 5, the 5-12 matchup. Keep in mind, they're giving out auto bids, 4 auto bids for conference champs. What the fuck is the Big 12 Big 12 champ can have 2 or 3 losses as a 4 seed. So you're like a 5 seed. You get a group of 5, and then you get a bad conference champion, possibly the worst one out of the power conferences. I don't know.
It's an interesting.
That's
that's a sneaky angle a year in advance there. That I agree, because when they set it up, they're setting it up for what the old now though. You take all the good teams and put them in 2 conferences. So I agree. No, that's a good point. I think as we get closer and you can kind of see who's going to potentially fall into those seeds, could be some value there.
I think sweet spot. I don't think you want to wait until August to bet futures, because then they get everything. You can't pull one over on the books. Sweet spot for me is right after spring. I think May's a really good month to jump into this stuff. You get spring. Remember, there's another portal in this after the spring too. You don't want to be caught off guard by that. Especially, I mean, you could get, I like Ole Miss, and then not that I think he matters to their team power rating, but you can get a Judkins situation. I love Ole Miss, All American running back gone, just like that portal. He's going to Ohio State. What the hell?
Well, I don't like. If I'm Ohio State, I'm spending that kind of money to get a Judkins.
I thought Henderson was coming back.
So did I. Right. Listen. I don't know. I think it's Mr. Ryan Day might be not too long for that.
He's feeling the pressure, man.
Because I think he's feeling the pressure, and they're making some odd organizational decisions where it kind of feels like things are they're like trying to put fires out rather than have like this big overarching strategy. So yeah, I might be down on the Buckeyes next year too.
You want to talk about what ifs? What did they make the field goal last year against Georgia?
Hey, man.
Wow. That'll be one that I think when we look back in, years from now, be like, wow, that guy ended up being a bum. Could have won the title. Unbelievable.
He was a field goal away from a national champion and probably, turned it to getting fired in year 4.
Washington kicker. This is Wine Guy, 86, under 6.5 points. Oh, I don't know.
I'd lean
that
way.
Do the math off the top of my head. Yeah, one field goal. I don't know. That seems about appropriate, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd lean under because I'm kind of thinking Washington refuses to kick. Again, one field goal there and you're up against it. So, but I'd lean under.
Yeah, I mean, their team total is like 24.5. I mean, just to put that in perspective, one field goal, 3 points, 3 touchdowns, 21, 24.5. His total 6.5 makes, I guess maybe under. Connor in the chat, will there be an orgy package near the goal line?
Yeah. I think
for that.
They tried it versus Bama. It was just so telegraphed versus Bama.
God, that was horrible.
It was
that
the
was terrible, man.
Like everybody in the stadium was like, "Oh, he's gonna throw it this time." So, and then for that he has to run. No, they're just gonna, as Farmer said, like they just give it to Corum by the goal line. Well, why wouldn't you?
Rocco in the chat, shorts touchdown, 1.5 yards. I go under probably.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I picture Corum just hammering away. You got any other things you want to get? Best bets, player props, anything you want to get? We had the Westover one that I like. Watch it. We have that, and then he'll be hurt and scratched.
Right. But no, I think that was all we had in the folio. So good.
You want to go McCarthy? I'm trying to think stuff that franchise like that I agreed with.
I think Zach fired it. I think Zach fired it in, and I saw it come across. So I think he fired a couple in as
okay. I'm okay. Whatever. The McCarthy over rush yards, I like. Yeah. Wow, good job. Look at Zach. Kudos for Zach. This final show, he's going out with a bang. Those would be the two that I like the most. Trying to think if there's anything else. No, I think that's it. Did you want to put? I agree with your Penix over completions. You want to do that one?
Yeah. I don't think it was widely offered, but Zach, if there's a 22.5 you want to put in there, I think a couple places, and as we were saying, a lot of places were a little slight on these offerings. Zach, also, if you want to block that -110 character there, that's asking about the Michigan sanctions. You can go ahead and give him the boot. Because there's some Sparty trolls hitting the chat here late. Final thoughts, spread and total. I would lean Michigan at -5, and God, I'm so neutral on the total. Maybe a gun to my head, I think I'd play under, but the only
Michigan
bet
for me, pass on the total. A little back and forth there. Again, I thought I'd come on here and say, "Hey, guys, moneyline Michigan." I thought
I know
was going to be our best bet, but
and then so I it just got. I was gonna, as you said, 175. That was gonna be our best bet, but the line I'm shocked that it got passed through 200 today.
24.5 on the completions. You passing on that?
Yeah, pass on the 24.5.
Okay. Team total for me, I like over 30.5 for Michigan. I just think there's different pathways for that. I'm going to play on what I perceive to be the biggest edge. Michigan's offense versus Washington's defense. It could be a shootout, and they go back and forth, and I cash that if you like Washington. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm with you. I think
Tent had that too. I agree.
Yep,
I don't know if Tent liked it on his own, but I did a podcast, and that was my best bet. I don't know I know he listens to that podcast, so I'm a little if Tent's still watching, I don't know if he piggybacked off of me.
The tent ripped a little BP thievery in the tailgates, out at the tailgates. Took the beer from his cooler. So, but yeah, no, I like the 30.5 as I played some of that when he released it. So yeah, no, I'm with you there too.
All right, like that. That'll be. You know what? Let's put that in. Let's go pro.
Put
Michigan.
it in, baby. Last ride.
Over 30.5. Team total Michigan. Let's put that in. That's what I'm rooting for big time. You can find it, Zach, as long as we're not laying too much juice there. I think we'll be okay. But over 30.5 team total Michigan. That'll be that. I don't have any final thoughts. You know what? I was going to ask you, when do you want to pick this back up? As long as we're not canceled. You want to pick it up after the Super Bowl again? There's just not going to be too much that I'm going to offer in the next month. I'm going to wait for the portal to settle. You got the second go around of signing day. If some big market opens up, then sure, we can fire up a show. But I would say we start these back up after the Super Bowl, at least one show.
No, that makes sense. And then can kind of get back into it, that time around and do some spring stuff. But yeah, that probably as soon as we start seeing some 2024, and I know the king of the spring will be watching. I'm hoping you get all 135 every spring. What's your record? Are we gonna break the record this spring?
134 this year because Kennesaw State's new.
What was the most you've ever done?
Like 60 spring games.
Oh, we're blowing through.
They're not
that,
televised, man. What do you want me to do? Physically attend these things? Get press passes?
Get the stream link set up. We'll have Zach. We need to hire an IT or who's looking for work. A guy that records some practice, so we might be able to call see Mr. Stallions there on retainer to go to the ECU spring game. So we'll see if we can get footage of all the ones we want to see.
Love it, man. That is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, going out with a good one of his better one-liners of the year. Thank you to everybody that contributed as far as the chat and the questions all season long. We promise we will try to do a much better job as far as the best bets next year, but really appreciate you guys watching us all year long. It was a lot of fun. One of my favorite shows that I do each and every week. For the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, for producer extraordinaire Zach Phillips, I'm merely Brad Powers. You just watched Hit the Books, part of the Hammer Betting Network.